All right, algebra class, we're going to be talking about relations and functions. All right, different ways to represent data. Let's talk about this first. So here's some four different ways. One is by table, which y'all should always know. There's your X column and a Y column. Your next one is by mapping. And mapping is basically the same thing as a table. The only difference is these are different in different areas, different boxes or circles, and then you draw an arrow to where that X represents that Y. So 1 represents a 4. Okay? And then you have ordered pair way, and this is how you list many ordered pairs. Use these funny looking brackets right here. And then the last way is, of course, by graphing, like on an XY coordinate plane. All right, a relation is a relationship between sets. So what that's talking about is that, what you should know is that it has a relationship, something that means something together. So let's talk about like a race. What place they got and how many points. Well, if they got first place, they should get more points. So let's say 20. Second place, 15. Third place, 10, and fourth place, 5. That's how you would show it as a table. On a mapping, you would do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 15, 10, and 5. And you would draw arrows. 1 represents 20. Second represents 15 points, third represents 10 points, and 4 represents 5 points. And that's how you would show these two relations with a table and mapping. Now a relation has a relationship. You should know that from our assignment and from talking from yesterday and what we're going to talk about today. So a relationship, we're talking about place and points. So this is how I can tell you if something has a relationship. All of these have at least one of these. That's all that matters. So you could even have one that looks like this. Let me draw another mapping. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. You could have a mapping like this. For a relationship, they all have a relationship. The relationship is 5. So if x is 1, then y equals 5. X is 2, y equals 5. X is 3, 5. X is 4, 5. That's a relationship because they all point to 5. Now if it was like this, where only 2 points to 5, that's not a relationship because 1, 3, and 4 don't do anything. They don't even point to anything. They don't have a relationship with anything. They don't go with anything. So that's why that right there would be considered not a relationship. All right, a function is a relation. In other words, it is a relationship, just with one rule. The rule is for every x value, there is exactly one y value. So let me show you right here. 1 goes with 4. 2 goes with 8. 3 goes with 12, and 4 goes with 16. All those x's go with one y value. What about this one? Let's say 1 goes with 4, and 2 goes with 4. 3 goes with 8, and 4 goes with 8. Is this a function? Well, let's look at it. 1, that x value has to go with exactly one y. Does it go with exactly one y? Yeah, 4. 2 goes exactly with one y. 4. 3 goes exactly with one y. 8. And 4 goes exactly with one y. 8. So this is also a function. A way you could tell if it wasn't a function, let me erase this real fast. Actually, let me show you what a non-function is. It's actually my next example, and I forgot to show you. All right, so this would not be considered a function because this x value, 1, goes with 4, but also goes with 5. So that x value doesn't have exactly 1y. It has 2y values for that 1x value. Does that make sense? So this is not a function. It is, however, still just a relation. Okay? Functions and relations are different. The only difference is that functions have to have one y, only one y, with every x. Now I graph this one. Now look what happens when I graph it. Right here. Because this value right here, this x value, has 2 y values. You see that? Now this is actually called something. We call it the vertical line test. And the reason why we call it the vertical line test is because if we have a graph and we want to tell if it's a function or not, this is what you do. You draw vertical lines on the graph. If they cross the actual graph, now it doesn't mean the axis, I'm talking about the red line. If it crosses the red line more than one time at any given point, then it fails the vertical line test. Like right here. It touches it twice at 2 points. So this relation fails the vertical line test. So therefore it's not a function. So let me show you over here. Let's see if this first one's a function. We draw our vertical lines. Every time we draw through the graph, it only crosses the graph one time. See, all these points right here only crosses it one time. Now let's do it over on the second one. Crosses it one time. Oh, crosses it twice right there, twice right there, twice right there, and so forth. So this is not a function because it fails a vertical line test. All right, a couple more things we have to talk about. Domain and range. Domain is x. Values for x are independent and they're the input value. So remember that. Domain goes with x. They're independent and they're the input. Range is y. Values for y. They're dependent and they're the output. So this is the best way you can remember this. You notice that domain starts with a D and range starts with the R. Well, X goes first in the alphabet before Y. So does domain before range. So domain goes with X and range with Y. Now, as far as independent and dependent, you just have to know that X is always the independent. It's always the input. And Y is always the dependent. It always depends on what X is, so you can get an output back. Alright, what is the domain? What is the range of this table? Well, domain is all the X values. So what you would do is draw this little squiggly parentheses, and you would list out all the X values. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all values for X. That's the domain. Now the range would be 4, 8, 12, and 16. And that's the range. That's pretty easy. It's one of the easiest questions you could get. And that's it, folks. Now we're going to talk more about domain and range later on. It actually gets a little bit more difficult. We're going to throw in some inequalities. But for right now, that's it, folks.